Shabbat Shalom.
There we go.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Since the month of Elul leading up to the High Holy Days begins on Sunday, this Shabbat marks Rosh Chodesh Elul, the beginning of the new month of Elul, and so it seemed fitting to begin on page 358 with Psalm 27, our Psalm of the month of Elul, with the words Achat Sha'alti. Page 358 or 662.
Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai otav akesh. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai otav akesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai. Lachazot b'noam Adonai ulevaker b'eichalo. Lachazot b'noam Adonai ulevaker b'eichalo. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai otav akesh.
One thing I ask of Adonai, only that do I seek, to live in the house of Adonai all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of Adonai and to frequent God's temple. Here we are in our outdoor house of Adonai, our outdoor house of God, and what a pleasure it is to gaze upon all of you. I hope that you get the chance to gaze at each other a little bit lovingly. We just celebrated Tu B'Av a week or two ago, the holiday of love, but love is in the air still. So it's late summer, the days are cooling, maybe. School has started, which is maybe, or starting, and the days ahead are both chaotic but lovely. And certainly how nice it is to be able to take this space and take this time of Shabbat to come together as a community and pray together tonight. We have lots to celebrate. Tonight we have two wonderful B'nai Mitzvah students who become B'nai Mitzvah tomorrow, a wonderful anniversary to celebrate, lots to celebrate for sure. So at this time I'd like to have everyone turn to page 2 or 120 as I invite the families of our B'nai Mitzvah, Aaron and Ander, invite your families, Aaron, your family, you, Evan, Gabe and Amy, and Ander, along with you, I call up your sister Ellie, your brother Liam, and your mom and dad Hart and Justin. We're on page 2 or 120.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
invite the two of you to come up here to the bima. We're on page 5 or 123 as you gentlemen lead us in Kiddush. Yeah. I'm going to ask your families to stay put. Yeah, grab the cup.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzah banu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahavat ratzon v'nechilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu bacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon v'nechaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
It's just juice.
Well done, guys. Well done.
Mazel tov, gentlemen, and to your families, congratulations. All right, you guys can go sit down.
In our cycle of reading the Torah, we have already, up until this week's Torah portion, encountered 6 different descriptions of the festivals of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And I will admit that these descriptions don't make for the most exciting reading. But then there's a 7th description. It's found in this week's Torah portion, Re'eh. It's a description of Sukkot, which is different from the other 6. For at the conclusion of the description of this holiday, we read, Shivat Yamim Tachog Ladonai Elohecha. You shall hold a festival for Adonai your God for 7 days. For Adonai your God will bless all your crops, uvechol ma'aseh yadecha, and all the work of your undertakings. V'haita ach sameach, and you shall have nothing but joy. In this moment describing this harvest, the community is commanded to come together and experience nothing but joy. Ach sameach. And it's a phrase found nowhere else in the Tanakh. Nothing but joy. An overabundance of happiness that is the result of God's blessing, but also of ma'aseh yadecha, the work of one's hands. Tonight, we are celebrating the 73rd year of marriage of Alan and Elaine Greenwald. And I want to promise to you, once you get to 70 years of marriage, we are happy to give you an anniversary blessing every single year. Now, the Greenwald's anniversary was on August 7th, and I'm sure that they would be the first to say that it hasn't been nothing but joy, ach sameach, during their long life together. But their enduring love and respect for each other is a testament to the work of their hands, their joint handiwork, that has sustained each other and has brought them tremendous joy throughout their long life together. When I asked them what was the secret sauce of their relationship, Alan said, we both respect the other's integrity. And Elaine said, we just fit. They met at USC, at a sorority and fraternity event in the Tommy Trojan Rose Garden at USC, Alan pinned Elaine. I don't think you can do that sort of thing anymore on college campuses. But they've been together ever since. They had 3 children, they have granddaughters, and now 3 great-grandchildren. And they've been members of our congregation since 1972. And on this night, we celebrate their love, their handiwork, and we seek God's blessing on their behalf. So please, Alan and Elaine, I want to invite you forward to join me here for a special anniversary blessing. Please. Good.
Thank you.
Here, let's stand right here. You can look out. No, Elaine, come back. Face him.
Oh, that's he's the one.
He's the one. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. There you go. Good. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, bless this loving couple during this month of the anniversary of their marriage. And may the 2 of you reflect with deep gratitude upon the years that have passed. Many and varied have been your experiences since that moment of marriage. May you recall the joys that have sweetened your lives. May you be thankful for the strength that allowed you to weather the storms that at times may have shook you to your very roots. God, you have been with this couple through all their years together, so may you continue to bless them with your presence in the years to come. Yivarechechem Adonai v'yishmerechem. May God bless you and keep you. Ye'er Adonai panav elechem v'chunechem. May God's light shine upon the 2 of you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elechem v'yasem lechem shalom. And may God's presence continue to support you and lift you up and to give you that great gift, the gift of peace and the gift of shlemut. And I want us to say together the blessing of Shehechianu, something we say once, when something happens once a year. And I got to say, this is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for them. So let's say that. Let's say Shehechianu together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Mazal tov.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov. Heilanu, 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 ulechol Yisrael. Heilanu, heilanu, ulechol Yisrael. Yeheilanu, Yeheilanu, ulechol Yisrael. Yeheilanu, Yeheilanu, ulechol Yisrael.
So from 73 years of marriage to a relationship that goes back, I don't know, a few thousand years or so, the relationship between the Jewish people and Shabbat, between God and the Jewish people. We'll sing the words of Lecha Dodi, welcoming Shabbat as a beloved bride, a beloved guest into our community on page 20 or 138. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor, b'dibor echad hishmianu, el ha'miyuchad Adonai מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום את ארץ בלגה ושמחה ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
So now that we're all standing, and before we sing the call to worship, our prayer, which really requires a community in order to offer this prayer out loud, it's important that we get to know each other a bit as a community. So first things first, just to introduce the folks who are up here, I'm Rabbi Heath Wattenmaker, joined by Rabbi Sarah Weissman, and our senior Rabbi Jeremy Morrison. Rabbi John Prosnett is in the back with his kids. But I want to have you now that you're standing, it's very easy. Just turn around in your chair and say Shabbat Shalom and introduce yourself to someone sitting around you. See, isn't that better? See, now we know each other. Now we can really pray together as one community. So we'll turn to page 28 or 146 as we offer words of the Baruch Hu. Continue together at the bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my sibling, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. continue on page 34 or 152 with words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You can be seated. As we turn to the V'ahavta on page 36, it's my pleasure and honor to call up our upcoming bat mitzvah, Becca Richardson.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'elech asher anochi mitzavecha hayom ha'levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, vishivtecha b'veitecha, uvelechtecha v'aderech, ushochbecha uvekumecha, ushartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot beinenecha, uchtavtam. Al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We sing of shelter and of peace, Hashkivenu, on page 42 or 143.
Or number 3 on your song sheet. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Baruch atah
In an envelope marked personal, God addressed me a letter. In an envelope marked personal, I have given my answer. Tefillah begins on page 46. And please rise if you are able.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, V'Zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rav leHoshia. Mori atah, Mechalkel Chaim bechesed, Mechayei HaKol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehallelujah selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
We continue privately, and when you have completed your prayer, please be seated.
in the middle of page 62. Yehu liratzonim refi, Yehu liratzonim refi, Vegon libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri v'goali. Oh, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable before thee, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Ose shalom bimromah, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Amen.
Our Torah portion this week is called Re'eh. It's a word that's simply a commandment. See, see. And in these moments of Misha Berach, what we're doing with our words, we're using words to say that we see. We see. We see those in our community who are in need of healing. We see them. We care for them, even though they cannot be here with us on this evening. And so we offer these words of Misha Berach. We say to these folks that we see them. We see Yolanda Asusena, Susan Carlson, Sarah Chaskis, Rabia Ergelin, Selena Glater, Ken Glickman, Faith Gobeti, Anita Holzberg, Moritz Huppard, Marvin Jones, Andreas Judas, Toby Kay, Harold Muckamal, Edwin Alberto Merlos, Dmitry Nashenko, Eva Norman, Roger Noveski, Michael O'Riordan, Sophia Palisbin, Rabbi Laurie Phillips, Peggy Pizzo, Skiles Rumpfer, Shoshana Bat Chaya, Irving Shames, Lila Shames, Stephen Avraham Simon, David Baruch Ben Simona, Katie Wilson. Are there other names? We join together in these words of healing, words we offer for all, on page 253 or 371.
Before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Imotenu
there are many ways to mark the end of summer, which very many of us do not want to end. One of the delightful traditions in our community during the summer is that we get to hear from you, from our congregants, all throughout the summer through offerings of Divrei Torah, through teachings. And we've reached the last of those for this summer. We've reached a great one to be the last of the summer. And so it's a pleasure to invite forward Diane Frankel, who's been a member of Beth Am with her husband Bob since 1987. She's been active in Torah study, our Shema groups, and our Racial Justice and Equity Initiative. She and her husband have offered interfaith dialogue programs at Beth Am and recently launched a new Interfaith Bridges program through their nonprofit Building Bridges Together. And when you have a moment after services, please, I urge you to congratulate them because they've just returned from the wedding of their son. All right? Diane. Oh,
Shabbat Shalom. It's a privilege to speak with you tonight. As Rabbi said, my husband Bob and I first came to Beth Am in 1987 when I was pregnant with our first child, our son, Paul Frankel. Both our sons, Paul and Mark, the latter just got married, were B'nai Mitzvah and confirmed here at Congregation Beth Am. Bob and I became more active ourselves here as empty nesters, beginning with a wonderful trip to Israel in 2011 with a Beth Am group led by Rabbi Martyr, and 10 plus years now at weekly Shabbat services and Torah study. Bob and I offered our Building Bridges Interfaith Dialogue programs at Beth Am, and Beth Am is sponsoring our new Interfaith Bridges program with our nonprofit Building Bridges Together. You have warmly welcomed me into this community, although I remain a practicing Christian. I want to thank you all for offering me that sense of inclusion and belonging. I view this faith community as an important part of my life and my spiritual journey. I truly believe that I was standing with you as part of that mixed multitude at the foot of Sinai. It's a great honor to be here tonight. I want to share with you tonight about a small group discussion program called Facing Our Truths. Beth Am began this program this summer through Beth Am's Racial Equity and Justice Initiative, convened by Rabbi Sarah. The purpose of these small group discussions is to allow the Jewish community to consider how we face our truths about race, privilege, power, and the bias that we all hold. Beth Am offered 4 small groups this summer using this curriculum, each with about 6 to 10 people. I facilitated one of these groups. Our other facilitators this summer were Donovan Yisrael, Emily Nagankar, and Irene Lefton. How did I come to this work? In 2016, I joined the San Francisco Advisory Board of Facing History and Ourselves. The mission of this organization is to challenge students and teachers to use the lessons of history to confront bigotry and hate. I took a trip to Montgomery, Alabama in 2017 with Facing History leaders from across the organization. I was confronted with U.S. racial history, lynchings, mass terrorism against blacks, brutal violence against those who sought the vote. I began to educate myself about how racism has impacted our society. The more I learned, the harder it was to look away. One of the contributors to our Facing Our Truths curriculum observed, "We are taught to recognize racism only in individual acts of meanness and not invisible systems conferring unsought racial dominance on whites from birth." Over the past 3 years, I have co-chaired 2 groups, a DEI committee for our local Facing History advisory board, and a racial equity task force for the board of trustees of a small liberal arts college in Ohio. Each time with amazing Black women as my co-chairs. Through this work, I have come to recognize the consequence of the U.S.'s racial history in the form of ongoing systemic racism. The Facing Our Truths curriculum is a powerful set of materials that confronts us in a coherent and intentional way with the history and impact of racism in the United States. Of course, no 6-session course is going to finish this job, but the program is well structured to help us come to an understanding about how racism has infected and continues to impact our U.S. institutions and systems. The curriculum also offers perspectives from Jewish tradition and ethics to help put the history we are learning in perspective. Some have asked, why should Jews concern themselves with the ongoing impact of systemic racism in the face of rising anti-Semitism? White nationalism is on the rise here in the U.S., threatening not only Jews, but Blacks and Muslims and Hispanics. We need to be vigilant and protect ourselves and our community. And I also resonate with what Emily Nagankar said in her Devar Torah a few weeks ago. We all need to think not but, rather and. We can challenge anti-Semitism and we can challenge racism. We can be victims of anti-Semitism and we can benefit from white privilege, systemic racism, and hold social power to change the status quo. So this is not an either-or issue. We can be concerned with both anti-Semitism and racism. Our Torah portion for this week, Re'eh, suggests an important rationale for confronting racism. In this portion, Moses sets before the people of Israel a choice. Choose a blessing or a curse. If we follow the commands of Adonai, we will be blessed, and we have free will. The remainder of the portion sets forth a summary of the laws that are essential, that must be followed to achieve that blessing. This portion makes clear that these laws are intended to set the people of Israel apart as something special. We are told, you are a holy people to the Lord your God. Out of all the peoples on the face of the earth, Adonai has chosen you to be his treasured possession. The people are warned not to follow the practices of the general population in the lands they are entering as to how those people serve their gods. Those people are engaged in human sacrifice. The point is clear. Don't get sucked into an everyone is doing it complacency. The Jewish people are above all that. Rather, follow these rules to achieve the blessing. And included in this distillation of the essential laws, we find this famous passage. If any of your people, Hebrew men or women, sell themselves to you and serve you 6 years, in the 7th year, you must let them go free. And when you release them, do not send them away empty-handed. Supply them liberally from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Give to them as the Lord God has blessed you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I give you this command today. Ta-Nehisi Coates begins his famous article in The Atlantic, The Case for Reparations, with that very quote. Our portion recognizes that it is not enough to free the slave. Jews were called to make reparations, acknowledging that society benefits mightily from forced free labor and owes those people a debt. That was a revolutionary and aspirational thought in its time, showing God's favor on the freed slaves. Our portion also extends that generosity to all those who are struggling, setting forth the command that debts are to be forgiven every 7 years, and that the needy, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow are to be provided for. So, what would God think of the role of Am Yisrael with respect to systemic racism in the U.S. today? Taken as a whole, this week's Torah portion challenges the Jewish people to do what is right, not what is common or popular. Israel is called to a generosity of spirit and hospitality for those for whom society has oppressed, cast aside, or disregarded, giving a hand to a better future. We may see the aspirational call of these passages. However, we need to acknowledge that to take action today on a 400-year-old societal problem that has been embedded in every system in the U.S. requires that we inform ourselves of the situation. We cannot help remedy a problem without understanding it. My Facing Our Truth small group understood that learning together was one step toward healing the world, or tikkun olam. Our group was enthusiastic, eager to learn, honest, vulnerable, and authentic in sharing our own personal experiences and our pain about the realities of racism. A few comments from our members. The group discussed things, for many of us, we definitely would not have discussed otherwise. It is brilliant to have a structured way to approach the topic of racism, especially the Black experience. My main takeaway was how much I was not even aware of. I kept getting educated and having my eyes more and more opened. It was powerful to be together. Everyone in my group recommended the program to other Beth Am congregants. One of our most impactful sessions for me was a session on Jews of color. We learned that Jews of color are a large and growing segment of the Jewish people here in the United States. There are estimates that 12 to 15% of American Jews are Jews of color, or 1 in 7. And this percentage is probably understated. Jews of color are born to Jewish parents, adopted by Jewish parents, voluntarily convert to Judaism with or without a marriage, and come from the Jewish diaspora around the world. Unfortunately, many Ashkenazi Jews do not embrace these Jews of color. Jews of color report being questioned suspiciously or being asked to take on some service appropriate for staff, often years after becoming active and visible members in their congregations. When they share proudly that they are a member of a congregation, they often hear, "Gee, you don't look Jewish." Jews of color ask, what is a Jewish look? Given the Jewish diaspora around the world, the rising trend of intermarriage, including racial intermarriage here in the United States, and a robust trend of conversions by Jews of choice, they have a point. In fact, a powerful sermon in our curriculum observed that the very construct of a Jewish race, consistent with a Jewish look, has been used by the Jews' enemies and oppressors throughout our history to justify enslavement, expulsion, and genocide. That rabbi asked, why should we use our enemy's construct against our own people? If 12 to 15% of Jews in America are Jews of color, and that percentage is growing, it strikes me that Beth Am has a tremendous opportunity to develop thoughtful ways to welcome Jews of color and all people of color to our campus, our classes, our worship with hospitality and grace. The Facing Our Truths program offers an eye-opening window on systemic racism in the U.S. This is hard stuff, and once we see it, we cannot unsee it. So where can one go next? In response, our small group has agreed to continue studying together. We hope like-minded alumni from the Facing Our Truths program will form a cohort, not only to study and learn, but also to search out opportunities to act for justice and equity. I believe we are all being called to stand up for those who are harmed by systemic racism. We have a wealth of opportunities to make a difference locally and nationally on these issues. We can use our knowledge at the ballot box, in conversations with others, in welcoming the stranger here at Beth Am and in our communities. Everyone in the United States is on a journey about race and racism, whether we know it or not. And I believe it is better to be well equipped for that journey. I hope you will sign up for one of the future Facing Our Truth small groups, and I look forward to talking with you more about this important work. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you, Diane. If you're interested in being one of those Facing Our Truths groups, whether you're here in person or you're joining us with streaming, you can reach out to Diane or Donovan or any one of the clergy, and we'll be sure to connect you. Thanks for your important words. If you're able, I invite you to rise as we say the words of Aleinu, page 282 or 586.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, בגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Be seated. Despite all the joy of Shabbat and the joy of B'nai Mitzvah tomorrow, the joy of wedding blessings, we know that there are many who come to our worship because they're thinking of someone who's no longer here. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, whether they be our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. If I read the name of your loved one, I invite you to rise in his or her honor. Then we'll rise as one community to say the words of Kaddish. In this period of Shloshim, the 30 days since passing, we remember Joseph Kaufman, Evelyn Gross, and Marian Krasnow. And on this period of Yartzeit, the anniversary since death, we remember with love Ruth Adler, Joseph Alper, Jack Alter, Maria Amsch, Abraham Appleton, Ben Asen, Jacob Borsuk, Michael Brodsky, Saul Brown, Donald Davidson, David J. Eisner, Harold B. Elsom, Rita Etten Newfield, Miriam Fand, Theodore Fine, Max Fish, Florence Gordon, Isaac Gould, Alexander Greenberg, Solomon Gross, Paul Haight, Kendra Hedblum, Molly Hoffman, Ted Jacob, Audrey Kaufman, Bill Kelman, Frida Kindman, Leonard Kleiman, Yitzhak Kosef, Sonia Kutikova, Stanley Kramer, Lee Cubby, Alan Kulick, Beverly Kurland, Phil Linick, Helene Linson, Kay Luft, Pearl Meisner, Frida Meltzer, Jean Miller, Bernice Minkin, Janice Murbach, Merv Morris, Marlon Personette, Tilly Rich, Eugene Russell, Leah Baila Safro, Belle Sachs, Betty Schechter, George Shapira, Joyce Scher, Jason Schultz, Eric Sobel, Morton Summer, Raymond Spittelnick, Sue Stevens, Henry Stasinski, Barbara Menuzzo Tapper, Hanna Tsurlinkova, Gertrude Wax, Lillian Weiss, Hannah Williams, Jeanette Yavitz, Selma Zankman, Jack B. Zellinger, Donald Zucker, and Miriam Zuckerman. If there's someone else that you're thinking of this Shabbat, I invite you to rise and share their name out loud with our community. If you're streaming with us and you are thinking of someone, I invite you to share that name out loud, even if you're by yourself at this time. We all rise on page 294 or 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach kirutei be'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'gala uvizman karib bi'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam ulmalmei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yithale v'yithalal shemei d'kusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata b'shirata. Tush bechata b'nechemata. Damiram bi'alma bi'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. B'chaim aleinu bi'al kol Yisrael bi'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromaf. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu bi'al kol Yisrael bi'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom, aleinu vel kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen.
The month of August, we're collecting tzedakah funds for the South Palo Alto Food Closet. South Palo Alto Food Closet began in 1979 when several local churches came together to feed people who did not have enough money to make it through the month. Today, housed at Covenant Presbyterian Church on East Meadow in Palo Alto, this food closet continues to serve area seniors and individuals who are the most vulnerable, including those living in vehicles or in homeless shelters. We ask you to be as generous as possible here in person in the tzedakah box in the back, on Venmo, Beth-Am, or you can make a donation on the Beth-Am webpage. We know that there are so many in our community that continue to struggle. So how wonderful that we have the opportunity to fulfill a mitzvah on this Shabbat of recognizing all of those in our community that are willing to help those who are struggling. We sing the words of Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. May peace come to us, peace here, peace everywhere, peace in the land of Israel, peace to Giants and A's fans alike. So.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam Shalom. Salam
shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam.
Hold on to that. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Say hi to someone new on the way out. Yeah, rip it. Come on, like strong, like you're a man now that you're bar mitzvah. Yeah, bring some to your family too, okay? Yeah. Bring some to your family.